Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1315B, and today's date is June 25th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, Did You Feel It? Something Has Changed. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Yesterday, I uploaded an interview with Wolf Richter. He breaks it down on what is going to happen to the economy and what the Fed is doing. All you need to do is go over to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You'll see the video there. You can play it right there. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the video right on the site. Or you can go to NewsSentinel.com. Same thing. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the video there. Or if you are on Steemit, you can go over to Steemit and you can listen to the video and watch the video on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, in the beginning of Trump's presidency, we know the corporate media, social media was out there saying, oh, everything that he's saying is completely fake news, and they have to really clamp down on fake news. And then this is where Trump started to blame the corporate media for putting out fake news and said CNN is putting out very, very fake news. And since that time, we've noticed the corporate media, they have to continually backstep on a lot of their stories, retract a lot of their stories, because a lot of their stories, well, they turn out to be fake, and they're getting caught and caught more often. CNN, Thursday afternoon, they posted a story by a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, Thomas Friend, claiming that Congress was investigating a Russian investment fund with ties to Trump officials, and the highlights included Congress is investigating a little-known Russian investment fund. The fund CEO met in January with a member of the Trump transition team. The story connected Anthony Scaramucci with investigations into the Russian direct investment fund, and it sounds amazing. And we could see 36 hours later, quietly, CNN got rid of the story, apologized to Mr. Scaramucci, and basically added a retraction saying that the story did not meet CNN's editorial standards. I didn't even know they had editorial standards. I mean, how does fake basically go with any type of editorial standards? It makes no sense. But they use this to cover their tracks. And what happened was they created this entire story with, of course, anonymous links and anonymous spokespeople. And the whole thing turns out to be completely fake. Now, when we went back in the Wayback Machine, we can actually see the story and what they were doing. They were trying to make these ties. They're trying to continue with the Russian collusion, with Trump being associated with Russia, but they have nothing, and they keep trying. And I think the corporate media right now, they're digging their own grave with all of this fake news, because people are starting to look at this and saying, is anything that comes out of the corporate media, is anything real anymore? And just because one corporate media outlet carries a story and then another one picks it up and another one picks it up doesn't make it true. What it means is all they do is confirm with each other that the story is true, which says, okay, America, since we have these three different places carrying the story, it must be true. No, because they're all working together. It doesn't mean it's true. It just means they're picking up the story. But they've created this to make people believe that the propaganda stories are true if more than one corporate media outlet picks it up. And we know that these corporate media outlets, they're owned by like 5 companies now, which they probably like in the end to be owned by one. But we see right now that things are rapidly falling apart in the fake news department, and all these checks that they're doing, they're absolutely meaningless. Now, we see that the United States, the deep state, they're having a problem with Venezuela right now. United Nations Human Rights Council met in Geneva, and we can see right now that the Venezuelan representative in Geneva thanked 57 countries for backing them. Representatives from Cuba and Nicaragua have expressed their support for the Venezuelan people and the government of Nicolas Maduro. And we see that all of these countries, well, they respect the rights of the Venezuelan people, the government, and they respect the sovereignty of Venezuela, and they denounce the attacks made by the United States. So the deep state right now is having a problem with Venezuela. We see they were trying to push their agenda to get into Venezuela, and it looks like it is not working. So most likely, we will probably see false flag type of events occur in Venezuela to really bring this to the next level. We see right now there is a problem in Yemen. The U.S. is once again facing allegations of torture, this time during the interrogation of detainees in more than a dozen secret prisons in Yemen. And we can see there are unprecedented reports from the corporate press claiming the U.S. forces have participated in extreme torture and abuse of detainees accused of affiliation with Al-Qaeda in Yemen, including the grill in which the victims are tied to a spit and they are spun over a fire. And we can see the Human Rights Organization is looking into this, and we see that Yemen is a complete disaster. The United States needs to get out of this entire area. Saudi Arabia needs to get out of this entire area. Let the people of this country decide what they want. The same thing goes with Libya, the same thing goes with Iraq, the same thing goes with Syria. But we know the deep state, they love empire building. They love regime change. And this is why we see all of this, because what they do is they torture the people if they don't agree with what they want. If you don't agree with the puppet government, well, then we have to call you Al-Qaeda. Then you are bombed, you are tortured. And this is what we see happening all over the place. Iraqi forces, they've opened exit routes for hundreds of civilians to flee the old city of Mosul. And we see right now that the Iraqi forces, they are actually fighting the Islamic State. Actually, what we're seeing is a lot of these countries, they are fighting the Islamic State. And we're starting to see things slowly change, where instead of just bombing around the area of the Islamic State, destroying the infrastructure, letting the Islamic State gain more ground, we're actually seeing the destruction of the Islamic State, even from the coalition forces, because we've reached a point where they understand and they know these terrorist groups, they don't need them anymore. Plus, Trump has given the Pentagon control of going after the Islamic State. Remember, Obama had that control and actually dictated the targets to the Pentagon, because this was part of their plan. This is where we want you to bomb. No questions, just do what I say, which allowed the Islamic State to gain more and more ground. Now we see the opposite happening. Now Israel decided to attack the southern area of the Golan Heights. They're saying that there were 10 shells fired from the Syrian side, and we know they do this all the time. Do you really think Syria right now really is firing on Israel in this area to start another war? No, we know that Israel has been basically supporting the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, the moderate rebels, just like the United States, just like the UK and the coalition forces. This has been going on for a very long time. What they're trying to do is they're trying to assist them still. Now, Russia is out there, and they're starting to realize what is happening here. And I think they've known this for a very long time. And I think this is part of the plan of the Trump administration and Putin, where they can actually stop the deep state in their tracks. Now, we know that the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system was brought in from a base in Jordan and brought into the Al-Tanf area in Syria. The Pentagon has also deployed an additional military force to a town 70 kilometers to the northeast of Al-Tanf. Now, the region of Al-Tanf has turned into a strategically important point. The Syrian army, alongside its allies, well, they've been advancing to the east along the Damascus-Baghdad highway, a strategic route in southeastern Syria. The highway is also a strategic interest for the coalition forces in the area of Al-Tanf, where Syria borders Iraq and Jordan. The U.S. has military bases near Al-Tanf where opposition forces have been trained. After the defeat of the Islamic State, the U.S. military plans to take control over part of the Syrian territory. This is what we're seeing right now. They are actually going after the terrorist group where they used to support them. Now they're clearing out the area so they can have the area of the Islamic State. This is the first stage of splitting up Syria. And we see right now the Pentagon is building up its presence in order to divide the territory of the sovereign area of Syria. Now, this is the deep state where they're pushing their agenda. So right now, it looks like the coalition forces, they are actually going after the Islamic State terrorist groups. Now, Russia is definitely reporting on this because they've been monitoring the strikes, and they're seeing that, yes, they've been carrying out the strikes and actually hitting the Islamic State. Now, what's very interesting about this, and this was buried in the Associated Press, this is coming from Army Colonel Ryan Dillon, a spokesman for the coalition, and he said something very interesting. He told reporters at the Pentagon that the U.S. goal is to defeat the Islamic State wherever it exists. If others, including the Syrian government and its Iranian and Russian allies, want to fight the extremists as well, then we absolutely have no problem with that. They can join in with the fight, and both the coalition and these other forces, the Syrian government, the Iranian forces, they can all go after the Islamic State. So something has changed right now, and I think what they're doing is they are definitely going after the Islamic State, clearing this out. And we know the deep state, they want to split up Syria, and I think this is where Trump and Putin, this is where they're going to stop them, because once the Islamic State is completely cleared out of the country, I think what they're going to say is there's no reason for the U.S. to be there. Now, the deep state is going to push their agenda to say the Kurds need their own territory, but we can see right now this is not up to the U.S. It's not up to the Kurds. It's up to the people inside of Syria to make this decision. And I think Russia is going to push that agenda to say, you know what? Okay, let the people in the country decide if this is what they want. The U.S. has to leave now because the Islamic State is completely done. And I think this is what they're trying to push, and this is what they're trying to maneuver. And of course, the deep state's not just going to step back and allow this to happen, but we can see that something has changed now. The Islamic State is being destroyed, and I think we're going to see this accelerated over the next couple of months. And pretty soon we're going to hear that there's very little terrorists left in Syria, left in Iraq, and many of the other countries, which means the deep state is losing their army. Now, we always knew, going back in time, that the deep state, they will have some type of doomsday type of weapon, event, or something to basically change the course of where we're headed. And we're seeing from many different articles and many different reports that because of the Russian hacking, which really didn't exist during the elections, Obama said that he was going to do something at that point in time. And there are reports that there was a secret order which had U.S. intelligence design and implant a series of cyber weapons into Russia's infrastructure system, with officials saying that they are meant to be activated remotely to hit the most important networks in Russia and are designed to cause them pain and discomfort. Now, we know that Obama said he was going to do something. We know that all the technology that is out there from Microsoft, Google, and all stuff already has things built in. And we can see that this could be their last-ditch attempt to try to start a war, where all of a sudden they hit their infrastructure. We know they did it in Ukraine. That was a test where they hit their power grid. And we know that they might be trying this in Russia, where they hit their financial institution, where they hit their power grid, their infrastructure, and they try to bring Russia to their knees. And hopefully Russia retaliates for this. Now, this could be the big event, or they could switch this around where they hit Russia, but they also implanted cyber bombs inside the United States to say Russia then retaliated and hit us with their cyber bombs, hit the financial institutions, hit the power infrastructure, because all they have to do is say this is what's happening. They have to show no proof whatsoever. And then Trump would have to step in, Putin would have to step in, and we would have to see where this actually goes. So we can see this is going to be very, very tricky as we move forward, because we see both sides, they are now pushing their agenda, and they're going to basically hit heads, and we're going to have to see how this all plays out. But we can see each one has their plans, and they're battling it out right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.